Hi everyone. Today I am going to be talking about my first experience at UK Games Expo in the hopes that it helps. I remember when I was planning our first stand and there wasn't much out there in terms of personal experiences. There were kind of visitor experiences. There was a lot of those on YouTube, but not necessarily the experience from like the trade stand point of view. So I hope it helps. I really want to make it as organized as possible. If I miss anything or if you have any questions, just pop them in the comments. And remember, this is my experience. That doesn't necessarily mean it's everybody's experience. It's just how we decided to do things, how we found it was, and that sort of thing. I'm going to be as honest as I can, as truthful about kind of costs as I can as well. And we'll talk a little bit about what we made and things like that. So UK Games Expo is actually the largest board games convention in the UK. They call it the largest hobby games convention in the UK on their website, but effectively it is mostly board games, tabletop role-playing games, that sort of thing. There are makers and creatives who make products for things like D&D, but also kind of decorative things like stickers, notebooks, anything that kind of feeds into the fandom or the culture. It's usually held at the end of May, beginning of June. In 2026, it will be Friday the 29th of May to Sunday the 31st of May. It's massive. I really underestimated this, and I'll talk about this more later, but it's absolutely massive. Not just the venue, but the quantity of stands, the quantity of people. It genuinely is the largest hobby games convention in the UK. So actually, the 2026 one is going to be their 20th anniversary year. And they're going to have 5 halls of the NEC and the Hilton Hotel. I believe they only had 3 when I was there. I could be wrong. So it looks like it's getting bigger. But I think there was about 40,000 people that went, and it kind of felt like that. So that's just a little bit of context about UK Games Expo. It attracts loads of big players. I mean, Catan had a fantastic stall, absolutely brilliant. They have big sponsors like Wayland Games, and Ticket to Ride bought in an entire double-decker bus, because if you haven't been, the NEC is massive hangars, I would say, just massive convention centre, huge tall ceilings, huge spaces, and you can kind of bring in anything. I'll talk about a little bit like the logistics of that later, but you can kind of do anything within your space. Why did we choose to do it this year? So we became a company and social enterprise in November 2024, and a couple of people had asked if we were going to go for a while now, even before we were a company. And it seemed like the place to be. You know, there's always one in an industry and it's like, this is the event. And I was nervous because I'm not a massive risk taker, and it was big, it was expensive, and I didn't feel professionally like we were there yet. But because we turned into a company, we have 3 wonderful directors now, soon to be 4, and then plus me. And I got I got outvoted. On my first board meeting, it was a point that we raised whether or not we go to UK Games Expo, and everyone was keen. So we did it. No, it was the right option. I'm very risk adverse, and if I had it my way, I'd spend my entire life in my house drawing. But that's not how this works. But also, it actually was a really cool event, and it was really cool to talk to so many people. So I should be grateful. But yeah, I was against it. My 3 other directors were for it. We applied before we became a company in October, just before. And then we got offered a stand on the 6th of November. And then that's when I asked in the board meeting if we should actually do it, because otherwise I think we would have missed it, because I think the applications usually open on the 1st of October. We got it in maybe 3 weeks after that. And then we heard, 6th of November. And so we went for a 3 meter by 4 meter corner stand. So if you look at their UK Games Expo manual, they talk about pricing, but you basically buy a standard stand and one of their superior or premium stands by meter square. They do have beginner stands as well, and they are much more reasonable. They're smaller, but they're perfect for a table, your products, and a little taster. When I was chatting to everybody, like the team, we really wanted to do this ambitiously. We really wanted to give it a really good go. Like, we thought, if we're going to go, we want to do this the way we do it, if that makes sense. But effectively, the guild attracts a lot of neurodivergent, introverted, and disabled people. And we wanted to make sure our space supported that as well as it could. We decided to get a larger space and to apply for a corner space, which again is more money. So you pay for the square meterage, but you also pay to have a corner space. So we went for quite an ambitious setup, and I'm glad we did it. I think it worked really well. Even though it was more money, I think it did actually do what we were hoping. Only thing is, once you have a corner space and you leave that corner exposed and open, other people do linger. So thankfully we didn't have to talk to anyone because they didn't linger for long. But we did, opposite us, have a prop replica stand, and they had lightsabers. So we had a lot of people testing out those lightsabers in that space. Usually it was fine, it was a few swings, but I think some people, they did take advantage and they did get some videos for their Instagram. Anyway, so that is the reason why we did it. I wanted to then talk about preparation, because this was probably the biggest part of it. Even though the event is 3 days and 5 days with setup and takedown, I was overly ambitious but underprepared. The way I started planning was I just figured it out as I went along. We've never done an event this size. We've never done an event outside of East Anglia, I don't think. So it was quite a big learning curve. The UK Games Expo is held at the NEC Birmingham, so the National Exhibition Centre in Birmingham. Yeah, so I just started trying to figure out what we could do with the space. And I drew it out about 3 times. And every time I drew it out, I was like, this looks great. This is fine. This all works. Because the things you have to juggle is enough space for your products, enough space for your customers to move around comfortably, and also enough space for the people who are working the stand. Because of the size of the space I had, which was 3 by 4, so 12 meters squared, it came with 4 exhibitor badges and 2 car park passes. So the way they work it out is it depends on how many meters you have, determines how many badges and car passes you get. You can buy additional ones, but it was generously came with 4 exhibitor badges and 2 car passes. So we actually had 4 people working the stand, and I'll talk about them later because they're phenomenal people. So it felt like a massive space. Like in my head, I was like, 12 meters squared, how are we going to fill that? So I just filled it with lots of furniture. On paper, it looked great. On paper, I was like, this works. I can see it. And then we went to Carrow House, which is actually where we have some space, and we have incredibly reasonable storage there in the basement. And when I say basement, that sounds like it's not great. It's incredible. It has a bay window. It's light, airy, beautiful, part of this old mansion that belonged to the Coleman family. Anyway, I digress. We ended up setting up the space in the basement to actually see if it worked. It did not. After all that drawing and all that planning, it did not fit. I don't know in what world I thought all of that furniture was going to fit. So we reconfigured it quite a few times, walked around it, and we finally got to a point where it worked. And I think in the end, we did manage to get most of the furniture in. So we tested it out. We moved things around. We moved things around again. And then we were happy with it. But in the process of setting it up, and I think we did this a month before we were going, the setup, the practice setup, it really helped me to realize what signage we needed and at what angle. Because of course you have your 3 by 4 meter or whatever you have in terms of floor space, but you can also go up 2 meters. You can go up further, but you have to have a stand inspection, and effectively a stand inspection costs more. I think it's about 70 something pounds plus VAT. So at this point, we'd spent a lot of money and I didn't want to have to do that. We did double check though, and I think it is worth double checking. So I wasn't sure because we had furniture and stuff. They have got a bit of information about stand inspections in the manual, and we tried to follow that. But then they also have, once you've booked, a to-do list, which is really good, and I really should have looked at that sooner. And I'll talk about that later. In it, they explicitly say what needs inspecting, and it's clear and it's comprehensive, but it's also vague because it's things like having to assemble things with power tools, which is something we did have to do. So I was like, oh no, we might have to pay. So I emailed to check and I sent over another drawing of the final setup and a risk assessment, and they were absolutely happy with it. Oh, I also sent links to all the furniture we were using so they could see that it was manufactured, because I think their concern is kind of DIY furniture that just breaks. So I'm relieved we did that. So it ticked it off. I printed the email in case anyone had any questions there. And we carried on planning. So I started making more signage because you kind of don't really know how big to make it until you're stood in the space. So I wanted to make kind of more larger signage that you could see at the right angles, because with a corner space, people are approaching you from both ends. But yeah, so we made more signage, we created some more decoration, because my dream was to make a kind of post office, like a fantasy post office. Did it pay off or did it come off? I'm not sure. The day we set up, someone came over and was like, wow, this looks really cool. It looks like a retro post office. And that was an incredible thing to hear, and I was so glad. And I was like, thank goodness. But I think we could have done more, but I always think that. Who doesn't with their own stuff? But we were going for a kind of like a retro vintagey post office vibe with our owl mascot. This owl mascot basically was something I created, so when we posted it on social media that they knew it was about UK Games Expo if it had the owl in it. I just thought it was a good visual indicator for our marketing. Also good fun to draw. A lovely little guy. We slightly changed our colour palette, so there was a distinctive one for UK Games Expo as well. I don't know if it paid off. I actually didn't ask anybody. But I do like to make different colour variations and visual signifiers for like specific events, especially if we're posting about them a lot on social media. So our preparation, a lot of drawing, a lot of moving furniture around, a lot of sign design, and the costs just kept racking up. Because of course we were buying the signs, we were buying the furniture, and at some point we also had to buy stock. So that was another big part of preparation. I really piled on the pressure for this. I decided to redesign our products for UK Games Expo for a number of reasons. I didn't think the envelopes, like the original Quest design, was very effective for events or retail or anything beyond already knowing what's in that envelope. So I redesigned them into folders, but then I realized if I was doing that, then I might as well get them ready to sell to the EU. So if you don't know, the general product safety regulations have changed since we've left the EU. This is in the UK. And we now have to have a representative from Northern Ireland or an EU country. We also have to have everything product safety checked. And that includes having batch numbers on everything, contact details on everything for both the company, like the manufacturer, which is us in this case, and the EU representative. So I had to learn a lot about product safety checking and batch numbering and tracking and all of this. So I had an enormous amount of work to do. I think it was worth doing. We didn't end up getting any wholesale orders, which is something that I really wanted, but that's okay. There's always next time, or we'll keep trying. But everything's ready for when that happens, and we can now sell to the EU and Northern Ireland through our online shop. If anyone wants a video, also some support with selling to the EU from the UK because of the new GPSR regulations, just comment below. I'm more than happy to help. So I ended up getting quite stressed, quite nervous. It consumed my life. and it consumed Ben's life. The difficulty with doing something at a larger scale is everything gets larger. Your anxiety, your stress, but also the amount of space it takes up. So even though we were very lucky to have storage at Carrow House, things were still getting delivered here. So our house was just consumed by it. My little office space, my head. I just spent my entire life thinking about UK Games Expo for 6 months. And I don't think that's healthy, even though I'm grateful for how much prep I did. And I'm glad it went the way it did. I don't know how worth it is to like ruin your health over. So even though I did a lot of preparation, I don't think it's necessary. I think I started panicking because people kept saying it was a big event. I kept reading it was a big event. The more I read, the more I heard, I started freaking out. And I started doing more and more because I thought our stuff isn't good enough. We're not professional enough. And that's not true. My team is amazing. They're all incredible. And this is just an irrational pressure I put on myself. So I don't think that's necessary. If you decide to do UK Games Expo, it won't be perfect. It won't be anywhere near perfect, but it will be you and it will be your things and people will have a great time. You'll learn as you go. The more we do this, the more we'll learn, the more we develop. But as long as, you know, your stand is safe, that you're in the right place because you get a stand number. And when you arrive, you'll see your stand number on the floor. As soon, you know, if you do everything safely and to the best of your ability, what more can people ask? And I saw some brilliant first stands that I thought looked phenomenal because they, like, as soon as you have a restriction, whether it's financial or resources or time, you're more creative. And there was so many creative stands. So I think that's most of the preparation. The other big bit of preparation was budgeting. So just making sure we had enough money for everything. When it came to booking accommodation, that was quite difficult because I think the people who go every year who can kind of guarantee that they'll get in, book it well ahead of time. So a lot of the hotels were booked up. And also Ben and our other director, Ed, they were quite keen on like an Airbnb or somewhere where we could cook. So I was looking for accommodation that was a house with 2 bedrooms that had parking and was a reasonable distance from the NEC. And that's quite a big ask. There is not very many places, I would say, that has parking. We just got lucky. So I looked at booking.com in the end, not Airbnb, and found a great place because I noticed on booking.com they have a lot of like business places to stay, if that makes sense, like places that are more like for businesses who are going to the NEC. Costs. I just had this big sheet, this big budget sheet. I kept everything there. I tried to color code it so when the money went out that I knew it had gone out. And then there's ones that money was going out at some point and I put the date on those. And there was also like, there were the essential costs. They're the ones that I absolutely had to do. And then there was a kind of like, oh, this would be nice, color coded stuff that we probably didn't buy because we were significantly running out of money. So we streamlined things. We streamlined the build, the furniture, because we were going to do more bespoke stuff, but we realized if we bought furniture that could do other events or kit out our storage space, then that's a better use of money than to just buy something for the event. So we ended up getting more generic furniture. It still worked. So yeah, I think it's worth having a budget sheet where you have like what you absolutely have to spend and then the nice things that you could potentially want. And that really helped to kind of navigate it because I freaking hate money. I hate maths and I hate money. And there's a lot of that. A budget sheet really helped me track everything. And on that budget sheet, I also put what stock costs because that was a huge amount of money. In fact, that was the biggest cost, was getting all the stock and trying to figure out how much to take. So the way we decided how much to take was we took a smaller event. Like I think we looked at Norwich Games Festival. We looked at how many people went to Norwich Games Festival and then how many orders or customers we had. And then we found a percentage of people who bought stuff. So the percentage of the people who went, the percentage of the total people who went, who bought our stuff. And I think it was about 5%. So 5% of people who went to a specific place bought our stuff. So we were like, okay, what's 5% of UK Games Expo audience? And then we thought, okay, what would they do? They'd probably just want maybe one quest to test it out, not necessarily all of them. So we went off that, and we ended up trying to compromise between what we think we should need and what we could afford. And we settled somewhere in the middle on 200 of each item. And it was too much. I think we could have got away with 100 easily, actually. But that's how we worked it out, because there's really no good way of doing it. There's no easy way of doing it. I think you get a feel for it the more you do it. And because it was our first one, we tried to do the maths. I think we'll just take 100 of everything next time. Yeah, I think that's everything in terms of preparation. It's planning the space, testing the space, buying the stuff you need. Oh, also, there's an extraordinary amount of admin. More admin than I have had at other events. UK Games Expo is incredibly well organised. They are so good, and once you've bought your stand, you get like an account on the UK Games Expo website, and it has everything you need. It has your invoices, your stand size, your stand number, the deadline for like the invoice money, and a to-do list. So once you've paid up, and at some point closer to the event, they release the to-do list, and it's so helpful. Please go through that really carefully, because we missed stuff, and I'm pretty strict with myself on things like this, and I like to be organised, but I missed things. So go through the to-do list very carefully and only tick it off once you've done it. The main things that we learned was we had to have high vis for setup and breakdown. There is a lot of forklift trucks, there's a lot of machinery, there's a lot of people, so it makes sense. So definitely buy yourself some high vis, enough for yourself and whoever's helping you set up. You also have to book a time for you to go in, to like a time for your arrival to UK Games Expo to set up. I missed that entirely. Thankfully, we were at Norwich Games Festival the Monday, Tuesday of that week before we went to Birmingham on Thursday, and we saw Bindwood Gaming. Amazing company, fantastic people, beautiful dice trays, beautiful everything. So please check them out. They said, "Oh, have you booked your arrival time?" I was like, "No, what do you mean?" And then I was just scared for the whole day, and then I went home and booked it. And it was fine, totally fine. So you can do it close to the time. I did it on the Monday, and we were arriving on the Thursday. Maybe don't leave it that long. But they did say when we got there, they were like, as long as you arrive before 2, they're usually a bit more relaxed, because 2 is when some sort of big build happens. And it might be I want to say medieval reenactment camp. Anyway, there's a reenactment camp outside, and I think they arrive at 2, and then it all gets a bit busy. So yeah, go through the to-do list, make sure you do everything, high vis, arrival time. So basically there's quite a few documents you have to print from your dashboard, and it gets you your badges and it gets you your car park passes. So you'll end up with a lot of paperwork. I ended up creating a folder. So in this folder, I had all the paperwork I needed, including our risk assessment, the email that said our stand was fine and it didn't need inspecting, a emergency PayPal link. So if our machine stopped working for whatever reason, so our sum up machine, I was a bit worried about the Wi-Fi at this point, because you can pay for premium Wi-Fi. It was so expensive and I didn't think we needed it, and we didn't. Actually, the Wi-Fi was great. There was actually no problems with it at all. We were on a corner though. We were in on the edge of a hall, so like not in the middle of a hall, but like on the edge. So maybe that helped. I don't know, but we didn't buy the Wi-Fi. We just used their regular Wi-Fi and it was fine. But I didn't know what it was going to be like, so I made like an emergency PayPal link so people could go outside, use that if they needed to. They give you a sheet about pack down as well, because they're quite strict. When you set up, if you're setting up by car, like I said, you book an arrival time and you go to your gate, a bit like an airport. You will know your gate ahead of time if you look through the to-do list and manual, and it'll also be on your paperwork. You kind of have to aim for that, and then you only have an hour to unload. It's not a huge amount of time, because I think it's an hour between them checking you in at the security gate and then you coming out of that. If you go beyond an hour, I think it's £100 per car. I didn't want to do that. So we unloaded quite quickly, and both Ed and Ben drove in. I booked both cars into the arrival thing. We got there we unloaded really quickly because we got a bit lost on the way. The signage isn't brilliant, I'm not going to lie to you. It's pretty bad. So just be warned, it's going to take a while to find where you need to go. So I was like, okay, well, actually, we've only got 40 minutes to unload if they time it from when we arrived, which I think they do because they wrote that on our paperwork. So I was like, okay, we really only have 40 minutes. So we just got everything out of the car into a trolley and did quite a few unloads. And then Ben and Ed moved the cars while I started to set up. So I think that's probably the most stressful part, is arriving, finding your gate, unloading, and moving the cars. Again, there is free parking, and hopefully they'll carry this on. We got free parking for the entire exhibition. Car park's quite far away. Anyway, they aren't massively well signposted either. So Ben had a brilliant idea of dropping a pin on Google Maps. So every time we parked the car, we dropped a pin on Google Maps so we could find it again the next day. Sorry for the change of scenery. I took longer to film this video than I thought, so I had to go to a meeting and back. So let's talk a little bit about the event itself. You get into the swing of it because you've got 3 days. You've got Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. You do get into a routine. It's open Friday and Saturday 9 till 6 and Sunday 9 till 4. You then have 2 hours to pack down, so 4 to 6. So keep that in mind when you're planning your setup, because there isn't much time to break it all down and put it into the cars. It is intense. It is a long time. 9 hours. So in total it's 9, 18, I think it's 24 hours in total, which is a long time to be talking to people, and definitely get some support, get some help. I had the best people around me. They were incredible. We had 4 people working the stand in the end: myself, Ben, Ed, and Verity, my friend, who will also become a director soon of the company. They're phenomenal, incredible people. And the best thing was they were so excited and they really actually enjoyed themselves, which made such a difference, because I was shattered by the time I got to the actual event. Doing 6 months of prep, I felt like I'd lived it for so long that I was just kind of done in. But I was grateful that I did put in enough prep, enough organisation, and enough stuff to make them comfortable, because, you know, if I'm not, I might as well put in the effort to make it more comfortable for them, because they're doing me a huge favour. Like, this time round, I didn't pay them and I felt terrible, and I offered, but they kindly refused. But we did cover petrol, food, that sort of thing, and we made sure we had lots of snacks and drinks at the stand that they can enjoy. And of course they could go off and have a look around and stuff, but they were so incredibly kind, friendly, enthusiastic, really dedicated. So I was so grateful for that. And I think it would have been an incredibly different experience without them. I would have done a really terrible job, like a terrible job, because I was so tired. And I was just relieved that it was all set up. I think by the time we'd set up on the Thursday, I'd kind of like signed it off. Like, I was like, oh, it's done. But it wasn't done. I had a lot longer to go, but I didn't have the charisma that the rest of my team had. So it was just perfect. And I rarely did very much talking, actually, during the weekend, sorry. So for the actual event, Ed and Verity and Ben did most of the like customer care, customer service, and it was so kind. Like, I felt really weird. I think I did 1 sale in the time I was there, and I felt a bit guilty. I felt like, I don't know, like a manager, but in a bad way. But they had a good time, and I kept checking that they were okay and giving them stuff to eat and stuff. And yeah, it's good. Have a good team around you. It makes all the difference. And make sure you get lots of sleep in between the days, and good food. Ideally, maybe prep your food beforehand if you have to cook it, because we kept going to the supermarket after each day and we were so knackered we couldn't plan ahead. And during UK Games Expo, we also took part in something called Stamp Quest, which leads me on to a big support system that has helped with this, which is the Tabletop Industry Network, which is usually shortened to TIN. It's a free nationwide network of people who work in or aspire to work in the tabletop role-playing game industry or board game industry, and there is a Discord. And in Norwich, we have monthly meetups. And having that community was so helpful. If you want more information, I'll pop it in the comments, not the comments, in the description, because yeah, I was able to ask questions in that Discord. I was able to look through previous information because there's a whole channel dedicated to UK Games Expo, I believe. And they also created something called Stamp Quest. So visitors to UK Games Expo could go around and collect stamps from specific stands and then be put into a prize draw. It was completely free to take part in. I believe we paid about £5 to take part in it. There was an application to be part of Stamp Quest, but then to also donate prizes. We did both, and for being part of Stamp Quest, so the printing of the flyers, it was only £5. That really got people to our stand. It really attracted a lot of visitors, and I think a lot of those visitors, I would say a solid 60-70% actually bought something for us from our stand. So very beneficial to take part in Stamp Quest. I hope they do it again. If not, it's always a good community to be part of, and it was nice to know other people there. We were actually very lucky that our neighbours were actually from Norwich as well, so it was really nice to have kind of someone we kind of knew opposite us, and we got to know them better, and it was just a really nice feeling to be part of that, because it can feel a bit big and intimidating. Yeah, I didn't do any of the networking or the press event on Thursday, but I heard that it wasn't massively good. They're difficult situations, aren't they? Because I think everyone's trying to pitch themselves, everyone's trying to sell their game or get something specific, and it's a bit of an echo chamber because everyone wants something, but they don't necessarily have something to give in return. So it was just a lot of selling, not necessarily a lot of leads or contacts or conversion from it. I could be wrong. That is just a couple of people's opinions that I was chatting to at the event, but it's just not for me. I'm not good at pitching myself. I don't like that kind of event or networking event. I'd rather kind of meet them Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I think that's everything on the actual event. Wear comfy shoes. The car park is quite far away from the expo, or at least the exhibitor car park is quite far away from the expo. You also end up doing a lot of walking. The one thing we're going to change for next year, if we get in, is we're going to have like gym flooring, you know, the foam puzzle like flooring, it like clicks together. We're going to get that for our stand, I think, because our feet were killing us, and then every time we walked over to Catan they had like a foam floor, and it felt so good. It was such a relief. So I think I need to get that, not just for me but for the people who work our stand too. Yeah, so make sure you're comfy, you're cool, and as hygienic as possible, because there's a lot of people around. How much did it cost and how much did we make? As you can tell, I had to film this again because I got it so incredibly wrong. So with everything, there's the kind of core event costs, so the costs that are definitely needed for the event and they're attributed to the event, like the stand, the quarter page ad, the accommodation, food, fuel, all those things that we wouldn't have to buy if we weren't doing the event. But there's also loads of other costs, like stock. So even though we can sell stock on our online shop and at other events, we had to buy more. And of course, bags, bag stickers, that sort of thing. So costs rack up. And I wanted to give an honest look at this. So I've tried to separate it a little bit. We have obviously the stand costs. These are all the costs just to get the stand at UK Games Expo. For us, it totaled £1,381 and 20 pence, and that was for 12 square meters of a standard space, a corner configuration, and a quarter page ad. I'm going to be honest, no one saw our ad. Even people who were looking through the program to try and find us didn't see it, they missed it. I think it's because you automatically flick through the ad pages, and no one said that they found us through the ad, so we're not going to do that again. Then we also have the event costs. So the event costs include accommodation, fuel for 2 cars, food, stamp quest, which I got wrong, it's not £20, it was £15 we provided. Signs for the Calyx unit, which were kind of event specific, so I've added those in. So we're looking at a grand total for the event costs only, £2,453.04. So that doesn't sound too crazy. Well, I guess it doesn't sound crazy to me because I know the other costs are coming. But with these in mind, so with the stand and the event costs, just with those, so everything attributed to UK Games Expo, we almost broke even. Almost. If we take into account Norwich Games Festival, which we did earlier in the week, and the sales we got there, because we are provided free stand there because we provide a free workshop. If we take those into account, we have broken even. It's funny, isn't it? You can do the maths however you want to do it. You can twist it to sound good, you can twist it to sound bad. So I thought I'll just give you all the information. But effectively, if we take into account both events and just the event costs, we got our money back, just about, which is great news. So we didn't actually lose any money on the event itself, but of course there are so many other costs because it was our first big event that we had to swallow. Here is a receipt of all of the costs for this event. I'm just including stuff that we had to buy, and they are things that will follow us to other events, and now we have them, we don't have to buy them again, but these are things we did have to purchase. This includes like a power bank, because if you want electric there, it's incredibly expensive, and it's a cable from the floor, so it's a bit of a trip hazard, it's expensive, and we didn't really need that much of an intense setup, so we bought an Anker power bank. I think I'm a little bit in love with it. So I was just gonna buy a cheap one, but this thing it's part of the family now. It charges things. There's like 4 different charging speeds, and there's the USB and then the USB-C, and it has like a little screen where it tells you how much energy it's used. It doesn't use very much, like it has a lot, it can hold a lot, so we really didn't have to charge it that much. Even though it was £100, I'm glad Ben persuaded me to go for something a little bit more fancy. Anyway, bit of a divergence, but yes, get yourself a power bank, then you can use it for other events, and it's cheaper than their electricity. So yeah, if you take into all of the costs, including stock, the power bank, furniture, bags, bag stickers, but with everything that we had to pay to do this, it's a total of £5,724.26. So if you look at it like that, we did not make our money back. Nowhere near. But we still have all that stuff for future events. We still have stock to sell. At least we made back all of the money that kind of vanished for the event, like vanished on accommodation or fuel or those sort of things. There's nothing really to show for that, so it's good that that's come back. And we've had an increase in online sales since, so that's also a good thing. Prior to UK Games Expo, we were averaging somewhere between £50 to £100 a month, which is not very much at all. Within the last 30 days, our shop sales have been £350, and our social media following and that sort of thing has grown and has been more sustained in terms of engagement. So things are definitely better. I think we've kind of stepped up, like a little step, but we've definitely stepped up into kind of an area that is more shop sales, more engagement. And I think it just kind of helps us make those little steps up the steps. A little bit of wisdom there. Anyway, I hope that helps a little bit. Money is always difficult, and you can slice it however you want to slice it. But the way I want to look at it is we broke even on the event itself, and that's amazing. It does mean we're looking at kind of saving that to do it again, so it just kind of goes round. But it's there to do that, so very grateful for that. Yeah, obviously if you have any questions about any of this, pop them in the comments. Back to Past Jazz. Initially, after it finished, I wasn't in a good headspace. I don't think me and Ben were just not doing well. We'd put a lot of pressure on ourselves, we put a lot of ambition into it, and I think we had unrealistic expectations of what it would achieve, because, you know, it is a fight to keep a small company going, and it would be lovely to have stockists and wholesale opportunities and all sorts. but that doesn't necessarily happen overnight. And I think we've just been fighting really hard for the company and getting me full time and things, that our ambitions got more and more unrealistic, and we felt pretty rubbish about it for a while. I really had to convince myself we'd done a good job. There was, without a doubt, Verity and Ed and Ben had done an incredible job, without a doubt. Just me feeling like I'd not held up my end of the bargain, you know, because everyone had put so much time and effort and resources and their time, you know, their holiday into this, that I wanted to provide them with something where I'm like, okay, well, this is the next step. I can pay you back soon. But they really thought, like, everyone thought it was a really big success. And I've started to come around to that way of thinking, because you can't have unrealistic expectations, and you can't necessarily measure something by your expectations, because these things are huge and competitive, and it was our first one. And breaking even on your first event, pretty bloody good. Like, yeah, I'm starting to really celebrate it now. So I'm just trying to keep that mindset and to just keep chipping away at it. And we're definitely trying to do it again next year. If we were having this conversation like a day, a week, or even a month after UK Games Expo, I would say absolutely not, never again. I didn't want to talk to anyone for a week. Yeah, exactly a month after, me and Ben started talking about it again. But, you know, all the fun bits, like what we wanted to do next and how we wanted to set it up and what kind of experience did we want to give people. And we got excited about it again. So that's good. And it shouldn't be too much work next time. I shouldn't be redesigning products. So I had some like key takeaways written down. I think I mostly went through them. What are my key takeaways? Yeah, for a month after, I didn't want to do it again. So don't put pressure on yourself to decide if you're doing the next one immediately. Please take a break. Ideally, do something to make yourself feel better afterwards, because it's huge. Me and Ben went to the pig spa. Oh, that was great. I felt much better after that. Although I had to like have a couple of days just in silence. My sensitivities were through the roof. Like just anything sensory. But yeah, after a couple of days in silence, we went to the spa and it was much better. You will make mistakes. Please be gentle on yourself. That is huge. You won't do everything perfectly, so don't expect yourself to. Oh, and also, ask me any questions in the comments, and I'll get back to you. I think hopefully I've covered most important things. Not in a very good order. Sorry about that.